I have decided something. What have you decided? I have decided
that
when we're born, we have a mommy and daddy, right? And then when we grow up and get married, we have children of our own. And then our children grow up and get married and have children. And so on and so on. So it's very important and very fun also to...
Happy Tuesday, which is the day before Hump Day, so it's Hump Day Eve. So you guys can hump if you wanna. You can hump if you wanna. Hi, it's Miranda, and you're listening to Interesting Sex, and I'm really excited because today's awesome. Like, every day's awesome. I'm talking to a guy whose fetish is tickling. How cool is that? I didn't even know tickling was a fetish, but it sounds like super fun, and I can't wait to talk to him about it, and I can't wait to share the episode with you. But real quick, if you don't mind, please go on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen, and we'll allow you to subscribe and to rate and review. Check me out on Instagram, Interesting Sex Podcast. Do you think you have interesting sex? Go to interestingsexpodcast.com or send me an email, interestingsexpodcast@gmail.com, and let me know what you're into, because I could use an interview and you could be heard, because everybody's story is important. Not everyone's is interesting, but everyone's is important. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started, because I'm stoked. Let's open our ears, our hearts, and our holes and give a nice warm welcome to Lew.
Hello.
Hello?
Hello, yes, hi, this is Lew.
Oh, hey, Lew. This is Miranda calling from Interesting Sex Podcast.
Hi, how are you?
I'm so good. How are you today?
Doing well, thank you.
What's going on with you today?
Well, right now, right now we're in between the weather warnings.
Where are you?
Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah, so we had a wind chill of minus 52 over here. Then yesterday, I think our high was 50 above. So the wind chill went probably about 100 degrees. And now tonight we have a weather warning because we're supposed to have an ice storm.
Wow, that's intense.
So this winter is, at least this January, February, has been kind of interesting for us. So
yeah, but you've had a nice day today?
Yeah, it's pretty good. Pretty good so far, yes.
So first, let's just start out with you telling me who you are, how you identify as like a human gender-wise, and how you identify sexually, so we can go ahead and get started.
Okay, I identify as a gay white male. Okay, I've been out since I was 21 years old, but I knew about it probably 10 years prior to that, and had been sexually oppressed for that long, because when I realized for myself that I was gay, I became repressed, as a lot of gay boys do, when you're that age, and trying to grow up and figure yourself out. And right now, I'm fully out of the closet and into the fetish world. Some people would say somewhat lightly because of my interests. My interests are in male feed and tickling, and I've known this for probably as long as I could possibly remember.
Okay.
Once I became much more comfortable with my sexuality and my being and actually expressing it, then I've been able to get into the fetishism of getting together with guys and having sessions, I guess you might say, and getting together with guys. And over the years, I would say I've gotten together in sessions with dozens of guys.
Okay, so when you're talking about sessions, do you mean specifically for tickling sessions? Are they sexual scenarios or both?
They can be both. It's mainly for tickling, but it can be both. And most of the time, the guys who get together, I would say 98 to 99% of the time, they would want to get together and have a session in which they would have an orgasm afterwards. There have been very few who have get together only for the play, and that's it, and do not want any orgasm or anything. Most of the guys, if they gotten together and they have any sort of restrictions, they say, well, they don't want any penetration, which means that they don't want to be anally penetrated. That's usually biggest restriction that I've heard of from guys.
Okay. So I'm super interested in talking to you about tickling, but I think I'm first going to start with the feet part. When did you start noticing, did you first start to realize your sexuality into liking males first, or did you start to realize feet first?
They were both, I think, at the same time. It literally came together both for male and for feet when I was 5 years old.
Oh.
That was like the very, very first time when I've gazed into a grown man's male feet, and felt something that I knew was beyond pleasure. But at that age, I could not voice it because I didn't have sex education. I wasn't taught anything about sex. I wasn't sexually abused. I had no introduction to being a sexual being at 5 years old. But I knew when there was an incident when I gazed onto male adult feet that it was more than just, hey, I like it. I couldn't describe what it was, but I think I later figured out it was probably maybe getting sexually aroused. I had to figure that out later, to when I had a wet dream thinking about tickling a guy when I was about 10 or 11 years old. I think that's when I really figured that out, and at a time it really freaked me out and it became repressed because of it.
Like you self-shamed yourself for knowing that it was different?
That it all kind of came together. This was a time when there was no internet or, anything like that to kind of figure that out. So the main thing was the gayness. I'm attracted to other men. From there, I remained sexually repressed probably for about another 10 or 11 years.
Did you have male friends in middle school that were talking about sex and females and stuff like that, so you felt more uncomfortable and knew the feet thing never came up with them? Or what was that experience like for you in middle school?
It's a sort of thing never came up. It was... I hang around pretty nerdy people, so so it wasn't anything. It wasn't anything that I got exposed to when I was younger. I was beyond getting to know some people who are incredibly nerdy and actually wouldn't even talk about sex issues and things like that. I was pretty much a loner. I decided at an early age that I really wanted to do well in school so that I could leave town. So
you were from a small place?
From a small town, yeah.
Okay. Do you know remember the first time that you were able to touch someone's feet in that kind of way?
In a way that was arousing sexual.
Yeah.
That didn't happen until probably about 20 years ago or so, when I actually got together with some guys at a get-together near Chicago. I know this guy that was in the male feed and tickling community, but mostly tickling community, who actually just pre-internet would send out a mailing tree for guys who may have a similar interest, and it would be sent out to all of these people who have requested to be on it and who are quote unquote members or so. And then the same person at one point decided, hey, let's see if we can get all these guys together. Okay. For 5 years in a row in the mid 90s, he held these get-togethers every year at his house. And I went to 2 of those, and that was the first time I was able to comfortably get together in playing with male feet on a sexual level.
I'm sure you've thought about this plenty, I would guess, because it's my first instinct to ask, but what do you think that it is that you really like about feet? Like, I know it happened so early to you that it was just natural, the feeling, but as you think about it, what do you think turned you on about feet specifically, or where it came from? I know it's a common fetish.
Oh, yeah. If I'm not mistaken, I believe it's the second most common fetish beyond women's breasts. Whenever people use the word fetish, there's always a darker or a lesser connotation to it, with like there's something unclean about it, or there's something strange about it, and things like that. And then I say to people, look, you mean the women's breast is the biggest fetish in the world, and we don't think about it that way because it's been institutionalized. There are industries that are built upon it, and not so much for, say, human feet. That's the second biggest fetish. I'm not really sure. I mean, I know that the first time when it hit me at 5 years old, the guest that we had over at our house had pretty big feet. He was a very tall guy, so he was like maybe 6'3", 6'4", had really large and beautiful feet. So they were very smooth. I remember it had long toes to it, the curves on the toes and slenderness of it and everything, and nice and clean. And so they were, to me, very attractive. They had nice nails too, even, which kind of surprised me. That's the sort of thing that attracts me as far as that goes. I guess one thing I should add is that with guys who are attracted to other men's feet, some of them are not into tickling, which is kind of a little unusual to me, I guess. But be that as it may, I do run into ads online where there are guys who are into male feet, but they're not into tickling. On the other hand, I don't think I've ever met a guy who is into tickling who was also not into feet.
A square is a rectangle, but a rectangle is not always a square.
That's right, yes. Mm-hmm.
It's like my favorite geometry lesson. So I just find it really interesting how, I just assumed that when you talked about the feet when you were 5 years old, that you would just remember it, like the feeling, but you remember everything about the feet, basically. Is that one of your earliest, strongest memories? It sounds very vivid.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, it was. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It was. That was, and the time when I was 2 years old and I walked out of the house and into the street by accident, that was very vivid too.
Wow. Okay.
Under the age of like 6 years old, those were my two biggest vivid memories.
Wow. So it's been feet since you basically could remember.
I should say, actually, it's more tickling than feet.
Right.
They go hand in hand, but if there was one that was above the other, then it would be male tickling.
Okay. So let's get into that. Tickling, hearing that is even a fetish was brand new to me until incredibly recently that this was even a thing. How did you get introduced to it? Was it just through that email chain? Or how did you know that you wanted to do that? And do you give the tickles or receive the tickles or both? Can you just describe just start talking about your experience with me and we'll just get into it and see where it takes us. That's cool.
Oh, okay. Sure. For me, I've always enjoyed it as an activity, and as a playful activity, just as many people do. Who
like
don't
when you're a
even
kid and you get tickled by your neighbor, like your neighbor, why our neighbors used to tickle us.
Well, yeah. If it's just like horseplay sort of thing, I was always into that sort of thing that has no connection to sex whatsoever. The interesting thing is that I've been interested in tickling in all aspects of it anyway, even if it's what I call platonic tickling, which is just like casual tickling. If you meet up with a buddy and you're just kind of playful and you tickle his ribs or something like that and nothing else happens. That's always been an interesting thing to me.
I don't think that happens to most people as adults.
Not
you just are like out to dinner with the bud and they just give you a little tickle.
Not as adults, but when you're growing up and when you're less mature and you're horse playing around and stuff like that, then that happens. But not as much as adults, certainly, because sometimes it's connections to foreplay that people have with it. And I've met some guys who can't even do casual tickling. If, say, not that I endorse this, but just in some work situation, if someone comes by and say, "Hey, Jack, how you doing?" and everything, gives a little poke in the ribs or something like that, there would be guys who would say to me they couldn't do that because they would immediately start getting turned on. So that any amount of tickling would already arouse them, so they couldn't do that. When I'm looking for guys to see if they want to get together for a session or so, some guys would flatly turn it down because they can't see themselves getting aroused in front of other men.
You're talking about straight men that you like to approach?
Yeah, the ones who identify as straight, I label as straight identified men, basically because some of them may be closeted and maybe not saying so. Maybe they're not quite open. To me, it doesn't really matter where they are.
But what makes you feel comfortable approaching those men? Well, I'm sure that's kind of scary because rejection is probably more likely to happen. What makes you comfortable doing that?
The thing is that when I search for these guys, and it's almost always online.
Okay.
It's very, very few times. Like I don't go to a bar and then try and see if a guy might be into it and everything, because even if I were doing that, if I were going to a bar every week and everything, I just find it an incredibly inefficient way of doing it, because you go to a bar, you have to make sure a guy is gay or at least open, because they might be aroused. Then you have to figure out what they might be into, and there are a lot of guys who are into the S&M scene who are not into tickling, which I always found is a little bit odd, because it, in a sense, it would fit right into the S&M and the DS sort of approach. I'll give you an example. Past couple of years, I've gone to the hotel where the International Male Leather is being held here in Chicago. If your listeners aren't familiar with the International Male Leather, a whole lot of guys get together who are into any sort of thing leather related, or S&M or DS, or what have you, name it, and they're into it. A few guys and I had kind of put the word out there that, hey, let's get together in this hotel room and do bondage and tickling. And the first year we got zero response. The second year we had there was one couple who came by, and they sort of liked it, but it wasn't anything.
They just wanted to try it out.
Yeah, they just wanted to try it out. But with, I think, many of the guys there, it's simply too light. They want to get into something that's much heavier, whether it be whipping or spanking or fisting or whatever. But yeah, it's one of the things that's unusual about this as a fetish, is that it's more than vanilla, but it's too vanilla for some of those.
Are you into S&M as well, or are you pretty much are happy with just tickles?
See, that's the thing. I'm not into much of S&M at all. I've had guys who asked me to spank them, and I said, doesn't interest me. It's kind of boring. I've had a guy ask me to burn his feet before, and I said, no. And oh, by the way, and there are guys also into bastonado.
I don't
Do you
know.
Bastonado is used.
Sounds like bust a nut. Oh.
It's that's what it sounds like. But if you go to places like Turkey and others, it's very, very serious. It's a torture that's actually used by slamming a stick on the soles of the feet, and it is an incredibly brutal torture. And
because then they can't walk.
Yes, exactly. They swell up and they can't walk.
Ow! And that's a fetish?
For some guys, a light bastonado is a fetish. And
they first get a bastonado and then they bastonado.
Yeah, it's like the word light is the emphasized word there, because you want the guy to go home.
Right. You don't want him stuck there because he can't walk. You have wheelchairs for those people to push him out and throw him in an Uber.
Yeah.
Do you tickle people or you like to get tickled or both?
In the fetish world of tickling, they refer to as lures and lees, like tickler and ticklee.
Okay.
The person giving and the person receiving. And I am a tickler.
Okay. I just want to know how it starts. Like, I want to know where you start tickling them. What are your favorite places to tickle? What do you like about it? Is it their reactions to it or like their body reactions, or you just like to touch them?
I mean, one of the fascinating things is that guys will have different reactions to it. Some guys try to hold it back and be macho and all, and that's kind of hot, to see somebody fighting it back, because then they're trying to present a challenge, which is pretty cool.
Like the challenge is for you, like, can I actually make them laugh and let go?
Yes,
okay.
and
so that's the goal. Is you want them to be giggling,
right? To refer to them as being breaking someone. Some guys just love laughing, and they laugh like crazy, and they just laugh nonstop. Most guys are somewhere in between, and depends on where you tickle them and what approach you take, where they're most ticklish, and things like that. So with me, it usually starts out for trying to see where the guy is most ticklish. Now, to back up just a second, once I've gotten together with a guy to do what I call a session, this is after a lot of communicating before even getting together that first time. There are a number of things that I feel that I need to know. Number one is, whether they're serious about this or just playing around. Number two...
about following through with the session?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Secondly, if they're going to show up, I want to know also if they've got any health issues that would have to be dealt with. It would seem like, well, geez, isn't this, if it's kind of light or whatever, would that matter? It's like, yeah.
Like blood pressure or like...
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I remember one session with someone who wanted to get tied up and tickled, and so there were three of us against him, okay? And he wanted, and sometimes it's referred to as gang tickled. So it was three guys tying up this one guy, and about 10, 15 minutes into it, he said, I'm starting to feel lightheaded, and I said, stop. He told us that he felt like he was going to faint. And
there's a lot of air intake and outtake when you're laughing like that, probably. Was that what it was?
It could be, but I don't want anybody to pass out, on account of somebody's going unconscious because of high blood pressure.
Right, because it's supposed to be something pleasurable, so you don't want it unpleasurable. I mean, 3-on-1 is intense. It's probably nonstop from one place or another.
This very same person who was a Lee showed up at one of the get-togethers, okay, and the same thing happened, except that he completely passed out. This is what I heard. Apparently, the guys who were tickling them freaked out. They all freaked out, and luckily there was a medical professional there. There was somebody who was a nurse, went to tend to him, and he, was just lightheaded and passed out and everything, and so he was okay. But that's a scenario that I always like to avoid. While I'm in the middle of a session, I always ask the Lee how he's doing. I always give him a safe word, let him know if the restraints are too tight, let me know. In this sort of thing, I kind of believe that the bottom is the boss, because that person is going to have the best idea of what their limits are. And even if they want to test their limits, because sometimes the guys do, I have to be very observant and make sure that they're doing okay, So I don't want a corpse. I don't want a corpse on my hands, man.
No. So first you check out to make sure they're serious about it and going to follow through. Then you find out if they have health issues, because that's too much stress on you to have to deal with. And then what?
Right. You find out what they like to explore, where they're most ticklish. They'll pretty much freely tell you, what they want to try. I always ask them also whether during the session they want to have an orgasm or not, because a lot of that is either assumed or unspoken. But to bring those issues out up in the forefront is to gain the trust of the ticklee.
Yeah, then they know that you're not trying to cross any boundaries one way or the other. Even if that's what they want, at least they know that looking out for what they want.
Right, exactly. Some of these guys will use tickling, I think, as a way in for further delving into S&M practices. So this would be like their launching pad. If they can feel comfortable about going this far, then next time maybe they'll go that far doing another practice. Maybe they'll go into spanking, or they'll go into butt play or something like that. Because there are some guys, for instance, who have not wanted to have anything anal, for instance, or have anything inserted rectally, dildos or butt plugs or anything like that, prostate massagers on the first go round, but maybe the second go round they're more open to it.
Are you turned on now talking about tickling? Are you going to go? No. Is it because I'm a girl? If I was a guy asking you these questions, would you be turned on?
It's been so much pleasurable for me to meet with guys one-on-one in person that doing the phone chats or video chats are a less degree of excitement.
Okay. In these sessions, do you ever get paid?
No.
Okay, so it's just for both of your enjoyments.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So someone comes over to your house that you've been communicating with. Do you meet them in person first outside your house, or they just come over?
As far as meeting people, I always meet at a third place first. I think that's a safety issue everybody should do. Never invite anybody to your house directly, because you just never know. Give the ticklee the chance at the third location to be able to say, you know what, I'm not comfortable after talking about it. Thanks, but no thanks. And there's no hard feelings. I had actually had to do that before with somebody.
Like where you wanted to back out?
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Because the person described himself as being A, shows up and he looks like B. And I said, no, sorry.
Were you not turned on by who he was, or you were not turned on because he lied to you?
Lied.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's get into the tie-up part.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is this because tickling makes you squirmy?
With some guys it does, yeah. So
I get squirmy.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I never really got tickled in a sexual way, but if you're dating someone and they're trying to just like tease you, it would be funny. Like, yeah, I jump and scream. And then I say I'm not ticklish.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I used to live in a house that had a set of double stocks. And so what I would do
Are you talking about the X thing?
Oh, no, ankle. I'm sorry. I should say ankle stocks, but they're 4 holes next to each other. It was about 6 feet long and had 4 holes drilled into it. So you could have 2 pairs of feet, yes, the 4 feet there. And that's happened before. And
you just lock their feet up in the holes?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then they can't run?
And then they can't run, yes. The favorite thing for me was having the stocks there at the foot of a futon and then tying them up spread eagle at the top, but then ankles together in the stocks at the bottom. They were pretty secure that way. That was really pretty cool. Then on the stocks, there would be an extra bar at the top, which would be a toe hold. So you could tie a little rope around each toe and tie the toes back. So you would have extra access to the sole of the foot so that the person doesn't try and flip their foot forward to try and protect themselves. So.
Do people laugh so hard? Like, tickling kind of hurts sometimes.
It can. I tend to be, I think, a lot more merciful than sometimes other guys do. If somebody's like in pain from their abs hurting and everything, I'll give them a break, certainly. The whole goal actually is to make the guy enjoy it so much that he wants to come back. I'm not like the type of person who, just wants to put a notch up there and they say, yeah, who's next,
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of fun. I've had guys come over and once they've gotten done and everything, I mean, they're so beaming with pleasure. afterwards. It's like, yeah, that's really cool,
Yeah, just
And
that
do they wanna come
tickling
back?
is
Yeah.
so like joyful and silly, which I love. It's just like kind of hard to understand how it turns like so sexual.
Well, what science has found, I think, is something that the feet, the sensations that you can feel through your feet are very close in the brain to the part that identifies sexual pleasure.
Interesting.
So that when somebody massages your feet, for instance, some people can get really turned on by that.
That
And
makes sense, especially like even too like acupuncture or like feet massage, like different parts of your feet and your palms connect to different organs. So, there could be like a dick part of your foot.
I think so. And as far as the bondage thing, yeah, I usually like to tie up guys spread eagle. I find the most cases, the guys are most ticklish on soles of the feet, behind the knees, cock and balls, just underneath the ass cheeks. If you lightly tickle there.
Well, that's somewhere that like barely ever gets touched. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
Sensitive.
A lot of guys are ticklish on their stomach and their ribs, but I don't think as much that I've found as they are their armpits. Guys' armpits are very, very ticklish. And there have been some guys that I've driven crazy when I lick the side of their neck, and
yeah,
just very
that does
very,
drive guys crazy.
Oh yeah. Oh, you've experienced that.
I've licked some necks before, and they go wild. Guys go wild over that.
Have they bucked like really wild like a bronco?
No, I must not be that good at it.
Oh, okay.
So that actually just takes me to my next question, which do you like to tickle with your hands the most, or do you use tickling like toys or different instruments of which to tickle, or how does that look?
Hands mostly. You work at it. It's an art, I guess. It's almost like an art and a science. But I do use fingers and feathers. There are some brushes that I use. Sometimes you'll see this in videos. Some guys use like stiff hair brushes. I'm not really a fan of that. On personal experience, I don't find that to be ticklish as much as hurting.
Yeah.
Toothbrushes work well. Also, sometimes you'll find in sex shops, you can find those metal fingernails. They're metallic, and you put them on your fingers, and they have a tip to them and all. And so you use them to tease the body and everything like that. Those are really good. Someone told me in place of those, banjo picks.
Okay. That makes sense
because
too.
I also use an electronic massager as well. Some guys are very sensitive to that, especially if you try and tickle them, say, under the balls or in the taint, or on the cock as well.
At what point does it change from tickling into sexual activity? Or do you think of them as the same thing?
No, I think of them differently as different, for sure. In the vast majority of times, if I'm tickling a guy and say I'm stroking his cock at the same time, he won't get off because there's two feelings fighting against each other.
Kind of maybe why 69ing is so hard.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're like trying to focus on one thing and then there's the pleasure, but it's like kind of impossible.
Yeah, I think something like that might be the case. It's just too much. There have been a few guys who've been able to do both. Those guys have literally screaming orgasms because they're having an orgasm while being tickled at the same time, and especially if you hit them at the right spot. I mean, they're loud. They're loud.
Can people have tickling orgasms without being like touched, like a body orgasm?
Oh yeah. There was a guy that I had here a short while ago. He didn't come, but his whole body went into orgasm spasms. I could tell that went on for about 15 minutes.
Oh, wow.
I would say. Yeah, he just contracted, released, like his whole body did.
And he'll be back.
He did come back. To get to that point earlier, whether tickling the orgasm happen at sort of separate points and all, it can happen together. It can be very, very fierce. In fact, this one guy that I was tickling and stroking his cock at the same time for a second orgasm because he wanted to have multiple orgasms. On the second orgasm, even though he was tied hand and foot, the force of his body was such that it literally threw me off the bed.
Whoa.
Yeah. And he said, yeah, he was a football player. So it's like, okay, yeah. He was a football player at one time. He got really, really concerned after. So, oh, my God, are you okay? And it's like, which is nice.
But he can't get up to help you because he's still tied up.
He actually broke out of the bonds.
Oh, he broke out. He didn't just what a man. So with the identifying straight males, are they more likely to say they don't want to have an orgasm or penetration? And how do they come to find you and say, like, hey, I want to try this and I feel safe doing this with you because you do this?
It's a good thing you ask, because one of the things in going into, because I go online, I go onto forums, and I'm on the Tickling Medium forum. I'm on Male Feet and Tickling, which is a relatively new website for men into male feet and tickling. And I also have an account on Fetlife. Okay, my profile on Fetlife has a picture of me, and not a body part of me, and a really full detailed profile. And a lot of times, because I write down, I'm not into reciprocation, which is true. I'm not into reciprocation. I think in part, it's a reason why I'm able to have these guys find me.
So when you say you're not into reciprocation, I know you don't like to be the ticklee, so you don't need to be tickled back, but is it also like reciprocation, like you don't need to come or orgasm, or you don't need any of that back?
So it's not necessary. With some guys, I have, but with some guys, no. The simple explanation is that I would not want to have an orgasm with every guy I tickled.
Okay.
Because not every guy is going to be my type. It all depends. It all depends on the chemistry, because I never know. Guy can show up and he might surprise me, and I get really turned on and everything. It's like, okay, yeah. And then some who are like high hopes, and then,
So, but you're okay because you get enough joy out of just tickling in the experience.
Oh, yeah. It's a feeling of being the dominant in that sort of thing, because a lot of these guys want to try being submissive. That's part of it. They like the idea of being overtaken and being tied up and everything, and being subject to tickle torture, whatever. Some guys want to be submissive, and it's hard for them to ask. Because I do ask them, these guys, about their circle of friends that they have. And would it be something that they would ever express to their circle of friends? And many of them say no. I've had guys say they would lose their whole circle of friends if they knew. That's
intense.
Yeah.
Like, what's the big freaking deal?
It's one of the reasons why I agreed to come onto this.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, because I will go onto forums and talk to people about these too, because the biggest peeve that I have, for instance, is going onto a forum that's supposed to be pansexual, and you still have a few guys who will, see a video of, say, FF tickling. Okay. And I go, wow, great.
What is FF tickling? Oh, female? Female.
Yeah.
I'm so naive still. I'm getting there.
It's okay. FF or MF, where male is the tickler, female is tickly. And they'll say, oh, wow, great. She has great feet and, great body. And she laughs really great and everything. All right, fine and dandy. And then if someone posts up an FM video,
it's a female tickling the male.
Right.
Okay.
You'll sometimes see a response that'll say, I wish it was her being tickled. Or why is the guy being tickled? I've even seen posts where MM tickling was referred to as disgusting. God, it's yuck, and things like that. And then when called out on it, they'll spring back with, well, it's my opinion. It's like,
Yeah.
No. You're
Yeah.
you're just being homophobic. That's all. You're a homophobe. It's not your opinion. You're being a homophobe.
But we're just spirits inside bodies, and we don't choose which sex our body comes out when we're
Oh
born.
yeah, yeah. Hmm.
So it
And
doesn't matter which one you are and which one you
um,
like.
now I will tell you, I've been on this particular site, I would say, for about 10 years. And the incidents of something like that happening have dropped dramatically. From my eyes, it's a hell of a lot better than it was like 10 years ago.
That's awesome.
So, which is really good. Over the last few years, I've had a lot more inquiries, people who are very serious about it, and I think.
And you're like, what a good time to be alive.
No, yeah.
I got all my practice in, and now everybody wants to be tickled, and I'm a good tickler. Earlier, you mentioned a term, tickle torture. Tickle torture.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
Tickle torture is just taking it to the like physical extremes of not being able to almost handle it anymore.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And say, so for instance, I've tied up and tickled a couple of guys, no, more than a few guys, to multiple orgasms. Now, that's tickle torture. If you've ever seen videos of that, if I ever had videos of that sort of thing, you would think that is tickle torture, because these guys are just going absolutely apeshit. By the fourth orgasm, they just can't go anymore. Once they relax, they may pass out just from being tired.
I just want to get just a little bit more into the psychology of it with you. And then I want to just ask you one more question before we go. But I just want to, I know you mentioned that you kind of enjoy it from getting to be a little bit on the dominant side of it. But as we were talking about earlier, and just like why you like feet, or, what do you think really drew you into tickling in the first place? And what it serves you?
To me, it's just very pleasurable. The idea of, being able to get another guy to laugh and enjoy themselves, and actually, in many ways, form camaraderie in that sort of way. Because I have used tickling to boost friendships before. Once I've established a friendship with a guy, that I can do that. Psychologically, what it does for me is it's, for me, very pleasurable to see. It's enjoyable to see another guy laugh. As far as the role playing, or the psychology of the role playing sort of thing, I do like it for being sort of the dominant in that sort of temporary relationship. And if somebody is a sub, then for a little while, then that's pretty cool. Although I do like a guy who kind of gives a good challenge as well.
And then I like to ask all of my guests about a sexual bucket list of anything that you haven't gotten to do that you're kind of got an itch or a tickle to do.
Oh gosh, that's really quite interesting. I think, because part of this I've been able to do, but I think it would be really cool if I went to one of these get-togethers and see if somebody wants to be gang tickled and come at the same time, to see how that goes.
Okay.
I think that would be really interesting.
So you've got to gang tickle before, but you haven't had somebody that wants to also orgasm during that scenario?
At the same time.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That would be pretty cool to encounter in the future. I guess maybe having a tickle night in an actual dungeon would be pretty cool as well.
Yeah.
That would be pretty fun.
I think this is like a really beautiful fetish.
Thank you.
Sounds fun and playful, and
I think people realize it's pretty innocuous.
A lot of the kinks that I learn about they're very intense, or they're not violent in the sense of being unconsensual, but it leads to like some violent places that people are exploring subconsciously. But I just love that this one is just about like playfulness and joy and connection and fun. So if you'd like to share your Fetlife with our guests, in case anyone has any questions, like they can always contact me and I can contact you. But if they have Fetlife and you're comfortable with them messaging you, would you like to share that with us?
Yeah, over at Fetlife, I have an account under kucheeku, which is KUCHEEKU.
Okay. So if people have more questions for you, or maybe want to have an experience with you or anything and want to meet, then I'm open to supporting that part of your life as well. And
oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you so much for like being so open and honest and sharing so much of your personal experience with me.
Yes, no problem. Thank you very much, Miranda.
Yes, thank you. And please stay in touch. I'd like to know that you're doing well, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, will do. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, Tickle Me Elmo might have a bigger effect on this next generation than we realized. We might have a bunch of tickle fetishes coming up, or a bunch of kids dressed up as Elmo. Either way, as long as they're happy and healthy. Thank you guys so much for being here today. I had so much fun talking to Lew and sharing this episode with you. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, Interesting Sex Podcast. I'm on Twitter, Podcast Sex. And please send me an email, interestingpodcast@gmail.com, or check out the fun stuff I have for sale at interestingsexpodcast.com. Don't forget that we're super duper lucky to get to have sex with who and how we want. And let's take a moment to think about those who are not as fortunate. 10% of any profit that comes to Interesting Sex Podcast will go to help stop sex and human trafficking. I can't think of anything worse than a child being sex trafficked. But on a happy note, thanks again for being here. Go tie somebody up and then tickle them. Love you guys. I can't wait to see you next Tuesday to find out what the pussy drags in. Check the show notes to find out where you can find Lew and get tickled or ask about more information. And also, thank you to the band 41 for this freaking awesome song. Love it.
Well, it's a doobity-doo. Yes, it's a doobity-doo. Well, it's a doobity-doo. Yes, it's a doobity-doo. I mean a doobie-doobie-doobie-doobie-doobie-doo. Yeah! Yeah! Oh, yeah. I don't get it. Oh, yeah. I don't get it.
I promise I will not judge any person.
Oh, yeah.